What is up, y'all? College Football Live getting ready to go. We were going to have David Pollack in. I just figured, you know what? It's just going to be me and Coach Jim Mora Jr. We can handle it ourselves, right, Coach? You ready to do this?
Yeah, we got it.
It's just kind of 2020. You have to be flexible with everything, right? It's like week 7 in the Big 12, week 5 when you talk about the SEC, and, of course, now week 1 for the Big 10. And that's where we'll start College Football Live is, of course, the big boys are back. And when I say that, it is the Big 10 is back. That's right. Conference makes its 2020 debut on Friday. Illinois traveling up to Camp Randall to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. Obviously, roller coaster couple of months where they have gone back and forth on if and when and how to play football this season. So overall, here's the deal. I'm glad they're back, and I know another person who's glad they're back. That would be this person. Heather Dinich is joining us right now. And Heather, when we look at this of the Big Ten coming back, the article you wrote on ESPN.com was talking about 5%. That's an important number. Why?
Because each team has a positivity rate that is going to be monitored by an individual on campus. And if it reaches between 5 to 7%, that puts them in the red, which means you have to stop for at least a week until you can reassess the metrics and see if the positivity rate goes down. So that is the determining factor for canceling a game, which would be a no contest this season in the Big Ten.
Now, when you're talking no contest, obviously they're trying to cram in 8 games over in 8 weeks. So with that being said, is there any flexibility from the college football playoff if something happens at this point to say, well, all right, we might look at kind of moving this deadline back?
There's no flexibility within the Big Ten, I can tell you that. The college football playoff, as of now, has its date set. January 11th in Miami Gardens is the national championship this year. December 20th is the final selection committee ranking. That's selection day. And if you notice, at all 10 FBS conferences are squeezing in their conference championship games by that date. So the Big Ten determined if you can't play a game, you can't play it. But in order to be considered for the Big Ten championship game, teams have to play at least 6 games.
And that's going to be the big number. And I want to bring Coach Jim Mora Jr. back in here and have a bigger picture conversation. When we're looking at this and we start looking at these teams in the Big Ten, and Heather, actually, I'll start with you. How many of these quote-unquote contenders will you see from the Big Ten?
Well, when you look at the Big Ten, that's the big question. Is it just Alabama and Clemson, or can Ohio State say something about it? And then you go to Penn State. What can they do? A lot of it depends on how well their quarterback plays, and also Minnesota with a new offensive coordinator. But to me, the team to look for in the West is Wisconsin. Because, guys, if the Big Ten really is that deep, it can certainly make a case for 2 teams in the top 4 at the end of the day.
Coach, you agree? One team, several teams? Where are you going with it?
Well, I think the obvious is, as Heather said, it's Ohio State. But I also agree that Penn State and Wisconsin could potentially make some noise. However, I just don't see 2 teams from the Big Ten getting in the college football playoff. I think the conference that'll lock in 2 teams, if a conference locks in 2 teams, will obviously be the SEC. I think it's going to be really tough for the Pac-12 to sneak a team in there. You know, they're starting later than everybody. The impressions that they have to make, plus the people or the teams that they have out west, I just don't think compare to what I've seen, at least so far this year in the SEC.
Davey, when you came on earlier, you had one finger up, and normally it's a different finger you're giving me. You only said one. I assume it's Michigan or Minnesota or Wisconsin, or it's just Ohio State?
Michigan State. You left it out altogether. Sure. No, I think it's Ohio State. And listen, what do you have to win a championship? Like, it's pretty clear. You have to have that dude at quarterback. And Ohio State has Justin Fields. And listen, they also recruit like Clemson. They also recruit like Bama. They're they're the only team in the Big Ten that recruits like that consistently. And they got the trigger man that can do it all and score points in bunches. So it's a good preseason warm-up for Ohio State this season. They get to, rally the troops and have a couple scrimmages, and then they get to go to the playoffs.
Heather, when we look at this, are we talking about a lose and you're virtually eliminated in the Big Ten conversation simply for the amount that they're only playing 8 games as opposed to some other conferences playing 10 or 11?
Well, not necessarily, Peter, because we don't know that everybody else is going to play 10 or 11 games. Ask Dan Mullen at Florida how well that's working out. I mean, look, we've got a long stretch of season left here, and there's no guarantee that the SEC or the ACC, you had Notre Dame miss a game already. Nobody knows how many games anyone is going to wind up playing at the end of the day.
Coach, when you look at that, what do you think is the proper amount? I mean, we're saying the Big Ten at least has to have 6 games to play to make it into the championship game. Is it 6? Is it 7? Or does it even matter? Just you're going to have to go by the eye test.
No, I mean, I think 6 or 7 will give you an accurate eye test. You know, I think we're all going to go by the eye test, but you have to play a substantial amount of games in order to show people who you are, what you're capable of. Hopefully there's a couple of those games that test you emotionally, mentally, obviously test you on the field where you're challenged. You have to overcome some adversity and come back so we can find out what kind of character your team has. But anything less than 6 games, to me, it's just, it doesn't reflect who you are to the point that I would consider putting you in the college football playoff. And, you know, I agree with Heather. We have to be fluid. We have to be flexible. We have no idea what's going to happen. But in my opinion, if you lose a game in the Big Ten, you're out.
Davey, you agree? 6, 7 games? That's kind of the litmus test for all these squads?
Who do you play? That's the biggest thing to me. If you play 6 or 7 games and you played all the big boys in the Big Ten, it's one thing. But I mean, if you played Rutgers and Illinois and Maryland, and you had literally no challenges, how did you look, by the way, Peter, during that stretch? Did you go frying pan to the face and destroy everybody you played, or were they close games and you messed around? So obviously, in a year where there's a lot of circumstances and it's going to be very difficult to decide, how you look is going to be important. And I think if you play good competition, if games get canceled and your Ohio State and your Rutgers game gets canceled, okay, I might not need to reschedule that, but I'm going to make sure I get Michigan on my schedule. I'm going to make sure I can try to get those power teams so people can see me play good opponents.
Heather, all I ask is that for your next article on ESPN.com, if you can use frying pan to the face. I think that's the nugget you need to put in there, the next one, right?
I'm on it, man. I'm on it.
All right, we appreciate it. All right, now we start looking forward to looking at the teams as far as the college football playoff. And before any Big Ten team takes the field this season, the conference pretty much has the best chance to get any team in the playoff, 96%. Better yet, 1 in 3 chance to get 2 teams in the playoff. And of course, that's the conference according to the All-State Playoff Predictor. All right, time for a little Saturday spotlight. And let's get into the Big Ten. And let's start with tonight's game, Illinois-Wisconsin up in Camp Randall. The Illini looking for back-to-back wins over Wisconsin for the first time in almost 2 decades. Remember, they were a 30-point dog, and they beat the Badgers last year. Davey, a repeat in Camp Randall tonight?
Nope. But let's find out what Wisconsin is. I mean, we got to figure out with the backfield. No Jonathan Taylor. It's not going to be one guy to replace Jonathan Taylor. It's probably going to be running back by committee. The offensive line, listen, it's going to be the same. Defensive side of the ball got question marks too. Losing Bond is a huge loss out there on the outside. They lost both their blitzing linebackers, so a lot to replace, but the running game will be interesting to watch because it's usually just next back up.
All right, so much to the chagrin of Nebraska fans and their athletic department, they opened up the season in Columbus on Saturday against Justin Fields in Ohio State. Buckeyes now have won 20 straight season openers, longest streak in FBS. Coach, is it as simple as Justin Fields and everybody else that you're watching this game?
I'm anxious to see how quickly the Ohio State offense, led by Justin Fields, can start putting up the Clemson and Alabama numbers offensively. You know, this guy, can he get himself back into the Heisman race quickly? This guy threw 41 touchdown passes against 3 interceptions last year. I mean, that's almost unheard of. So, good warm-up, as David said, versus Nebraska. Hey, Nebraska, be careful what you ask for.
Be careful what you ask over in facing 8th-ranked Penn State. They're going to be up in Bloomington against Indiana. Nittany Lions have won 22 of the last 23 in this series, including 13 by double digits. Davey, what are you looking forward in that one?
This one could be sneakier than you think, because I know what I'm getting from Indiana's offense year after year. But how about at quarterback? Sean Clifford a year ago, a lot of ups and downs. Well, guess what? You're losing KJ Hamler. You're losing now, obviously, even running back attrition too, because of off-the-field stuff and because of injuries or a heart problem, actually. I want to see this offense. New offensive coordinator. Karacha goes from Minnesota, comes to Penn State. Can they be explosive? Can that offense take the next step? Because that Penn State offense, if you're going to go with Justin Fields and go tick for tack, you best be able to score.
PJ Flex trying to take his Gophers the next step. That game is going to be in Minneapolis, not a place that's been easy for the Gophers. Michigan's had success winning there ever since 1977. Each one of those games. Coach, what do you see in that one?
I think that Michigan wins this game, but what I'm anxious to see is how they play on defense. I know everyone wants to see how Joe Milton plays, but I want to see if they can recover from the whoopings that they took last year. Ohio State puts up 56 points on them, and then the Outback Bowl, Alabama puts up 35 and over 400 yards. They haven't been able to stop the run their last two games. So can they get back on track defensively? I think they will. I have a lot of confidence in Don Brown and those players, so it'll be fun for me to see what happens there.
It ain't got nothing to do, Coach, with their defense. It's what's their offense going to do? Is Joe Milton the guy? Like, has Harbaugh got his quarterback? Because Harbaugh's missing one thing at Michigan. He's had some elite defenses, not last year. Coach just pointed that out. But does he have his quarterback? That's going to be the biggest thing for the system. Can they run it? Can they get a guy back there that's a really good player, that can be a guy that you can depend on, not just be a guy that kind of manages the game? They need a star at QB.
I'm not going to lie, guys. It feels good to talk about Big Ten football because you haven't done that in a heck of a long time. And I was looking forward to watching this guy play. Rondell Moore, of course, had a star freshman campaign for the Purdue Boilermakers, and now not an opportunity to get a chance to see him. Remember, he had opted out of the season, and then when Big Ten said we're playing, he goes, all right, I'm back. But now Purdue made it official. He will not play in this game tomorrow at 3:30 against Iowa. And the university at this time has not given a reason why he will not be playing. He might have been one of those guys that might have been a part of the Heisman conversation. Heck, he should have been at least 2 years ago before last year's knee injury. So now let's take a look at the Heisman update brought to you by Nissan. Trevor Lawrence, not a shock, odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy over at Caesars William Hill. But behind him, a pair of quarterbacks. Alabama's Mac Jones doing his best Tua impersonation down in T-Town. And, of course, Ohio State's Justin Fields, who finally gets on the field for the first time this upcoming season. All right, while these start dates are a little bit different, some things never change in college football, right? That means teams on the ropes. Who's down for the count and who can save their season next on College Football Live?
He's obviously the most talented guy.
I told him either you're going to look like a champ or look like a chump based on your preparation.
When he's not in, he's not over there, jacking around at the water cooler.
We want to play an ego-free style of football here.
We know firsthand here at Clemson that Syracuse is a team that can beat you.
The thing I saw last week in the young QBs is that deer in the headlight look like, oh my God, I'm over here with the varsity and I'm getting yelled at by the offensive coordinator and the head coach.
Tell the players all the time, you're going to have an opportunity at some point. It's on you to be ready.
Continue to stay positive and test negative so you can play.
Stay positive, test negative. I love it. All right, here's a look at the weekend's matchups presented by Cars.com. Top 3 teams in the AP poll all face unranked opponents. But tomorrow night, there will be a pair of ranked teams sharing the field at night. Remember, 2 unbeaten teams in the AAC will share the field. Cincy and SMU, catch that game, 9 Eastern on ESPN2. All right, some teams I feel are up against the ropes at this point. So as we get in here in the college football season, Davey, I'm going to start with this. I think the Auburn Tigers are up against the ropes, but I don't think it matters. I think that they actually beat Ole Miss handily this week. You disagreed with me in the commercial break. Right? Why was that?
I haven't seen Auburn beat anybody handily, Peter. So I haven't seen them look remotely good this season. So I do agree that their offense is going to look night and day better because they're playing Ole Miss's defense, and I think they'll play well. But I think Ole Miss and what we saw from their offense last week was an anomaly. I don't think you'll see that again. I think you'll see them play better and better. So I think it'll be a more scoring, more productive offensive game for Auburn, but I'm not trusting Auburn to blow anybody out.
Tank Bigsby, Sean Shivers is back. Lane Kiffin said he had to pull offensive players to play defense this year. All right, Coach, we'll go to this. How about Ed Ogeron's LSU Tigers? Are they up against the ropes at home going against South Carolina, who just beat Auburn?
They are on the ropes. South Carolina coming off of 2 really good wins, as you said, beating Auburn. LSU coming off a really tough loss to Missouri, then having their last game postponed. We'll see what kind of mindset they bring into this game. I think this will be a tough one, and I think that I'm going to go up, so I'm going to say South Carolina wins it on the road.
Ooh, interesting. TJ Finley, true freshman, getting the start. Miles Brennan not playing for the Tigers in this one. Davey, Oklahoma up against the ropes right now. I mean, Gary Patterson always seems to play Oklahoma, and of course, going back to Texas, pretty tough tomorrow at noon on ABC.
Always does. Since he's joined the Big 12, 6 of the 8 meetings have been decided by 6 points or less. This is always a close game. When Max Duggan plays well for TCU and that offense, which he usually does in big games, I trust him more, like you saw early in the season versus Texas. This will be a competitive fourth quarter game.
Speaking of Texas, everything's going on both on the field and off the field. Coach Moore, how about this? Tom Herman's team up against the ropes against a Baylor squad who hasn't really even been healthy to play a lot lately.
You know, I think that they're not up against the ropes. I think they're halfway out of the ring. I think they've been knocked through the ropes, and they got to find their way back into the ring. And Baylor might just be that ticket, but so much turmoil surrounding this season. If there's one guy that can bring them back, it's that quarterback right there. I love that young man.
So, with that being
love
said,
it, Jimmy. I love that. That's what I'm talking about. They're through the ropes, dog.
Sam Ehlinger, I mean, again, is this a situation where, I mean, it's either him or bust right now for Tom Herman's squad? I mean, they need that leadership, Davey.
They do need the leadership.
That's
but
for you.
I mean, let's just look at what Texas is. Defensively, they're not good. Offensively, they're really good. They're boom or bust. Sam Ehlinger, by the way, he has moments, man, where he throws the football, and when he's accurate and he's hitting deep shots, that offense looks unstoppable. And then he has moments where the touch leaves him, and he misses 4 or 5 or 6 big plays a game that really could make this offense even better. So I'm not trusting Texas either from what I've seen from him, especially on the defensive side of the football.
I agree. You know, they confuse me, and I love Sam, and I think it's his competitiveness, but just being a pure quarterback, like David said, and those throws that he misses that he has to make for them to really compete and get back in the ring. As I said, they're out of the ring. I'm not sure he can do that. I mean, he's a tough kid. He's a great competitor, strong will to win, but I don't know that the skill set's exactly what you need when you compare him to the great ones in the college game this year.
That game, of course, tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern over on ESPN. Of course, we get you kicked off with a wonderful crew, and even David Pollock's on that as well, too, for College Game Day. Inside Game Day, Pollock, y'all are going to have some fun. Justin Fields and Kirk have a 101. That will be good. Of course, the future of Jim Harbaugh. Monster game against P.J. Fleck and the Gophers there in Minneapolis. And Tigers and Vols have a cigar. Yeah, it's Saban playing against or coaching against another one of his former assistants. All of that coming up inside Game Day, Saturday, 9 a.m. right here on ESPN. Looking forward to that on Saturday, and I was looking forward to going to San Diego. Could have put it on the expense report and everything, but no. 43rd Annual Holiday Bowl off the table this year. Event officials announced Thursday, citing complications, of course, of COVID-19. This year's Holiday Bowl was supposed to be start of something new and different. Remember, first game in a 6-year contract inked with the Pac-12 and the ACC conferences. That, along with the Red Box Bowl, will not be played. All right, now let's take a look at today's more driven player presented by Goodyear. He's awfully good. Look at his snarl right there. Like it. BYU signal caller Zach Wilson leads the FBS in completion percentage, among the top 3 in yards per attempt, touchdowns responsible for. You can catch BYU and Wilson tomorrow night, 10:15 Eastern, over on ESPN. All right, we're going to be talking even more about what Zach's going to be doing over on Monday. Probably going to have a great stat line. But when we go and start putting down the rundown together for Monday, Coach, what's the one thing you think we'll be discussing after this weekend?
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 because I got a minute here, all right? Because David's taking
a
lot of my time today. Yeah, okay, well, here's number 1. We're going to be all over Ohio State, Justin Fields, and that dynamic Ohio State offense. But the other thing we're going to talk about is something that David brought up earlier, and that's Auburn. What's going on at Auburn? David, we see, arguments on the sideline. We see a completely flustered Bo Nix. We see the regression of Bo Nix. What's going on at Auburn, David?
Especially Chad Morris comes in, you think it's going to get better, but yeah, I don't like the going back and forth. And their defense is considerably worse than it's been the past several years, so taking steps back. But I got one for you. The Big 12 road runs through Ames. After Iowa State beats Oklahoma State this weekend, you look at their schedule the rest of the way, they're a Kansas State win away. They'll be favored in every game, but they'll be favored in every game. Their toughest games probably Kansas State the rest of the stretch. So Iowa State looking like they're going straight to the Big 12 championship game.
Wow. You know what? I mean, even
David
crazier too. How about go ahead, Coach. What do you got?
Well, I just think I love that David's never afraid to go out on a limb. You talk about his extreme, David's dudes. We're going to see one in Justin Fields this week, right, David? Was he one of David's dudes?
Stud.
I love that segment.
He's a stud. There ain't no doubt. And listen, you know what else we'll be reminded of? We'll be reminded Ohio State is ready right there with Clemson, right there with Bama. We're going to be like, oh, yeah, we forgot. There's another team out there that we're going to be talking about, Peter Burns.
David, you can apologize when Auburn beats Ole Miss this weekend. You can just go ahead and just send me an emoji or something like that. All right. Thanks for watching a little college football live. Enjoy the weekend. Big Ten's back.